I know we can't use Emic Trunkheart for those Infinity teams anymore, but he's still going to be really good for Clan Boss and open up a variety of different teams. We're going to look at one of them right now. Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. We are on the test server today looking at Emic Trunkheart and how he pairs with different champions, how we can utilize his cooldown ability to make some really interesting teams. And for this one, we're also going to utilize his Unkillable ability. So we're going to utilize all of his kit here, and we're going to do that by bringing in Maneater. And it's a real interesting thing that happens when you bring in a Maneater with someone that reduces the cooldown by 1 turn. All of a sudden, Maneater's going to be on a 4-turn cooldown, just like Emic Trunkheart. And if you use the speeds that we're using here, you're going to be able to put this team together, and it's going to be very, very easy. What's also really great with Emic is because he cools down everybody's cooldowns by 1 turn. That means anybody that has a 4-turn cooldown ability now becomes a 3-turn cooldown ability. So it's going to open up the possibilities of different champions that we normally wouldn't be able to bring into these very easy to build teams. I don't know how much we're going to have completely new tunes, but the biggest thing about this guy is he's going to enable us to make traditional, well, unkillable teams, like typical unkillable teams, but at much lower speeds. It's going to make it a lot easier and open up the range of champions we want to use much, much wider. So that's kind of the big good thing here, right? If you think about it, we used to use Painkeeper with all these other tunes, right, to make it work, especially with Maneater, because Painkeeper can cool down ally skills like Maneater every 4 turns. Well, Emic does the same thing. His A3, which does the unkillable ability, that's a 4-turn skill. And because of, the combinations there, it basically gates his A2, which does the cooldown ability. So that also happens on a 4-turn cooldown. Now, of course, if we don't want to use his unkillable ability, we could make it on a 3-turn cooldown, which is going to open up even more possibilities for us. But really what I want to do right now is show this unkillable team utilizing Maneater, and I think it's going to be really good for those of you that have Maneater and can get Emic Trunkheart. Now, before we get in, I just want to say there's going to be a variety of different ways to build Emic around teams, right? But the big thing you have to remember, he cannot do unkillable by himself. If he had block damage ability, it'd be a different story, but he doesn't, and that really does limit us as far as like the types of teams we can build and the way we've got to utilize them. It is conceivable. I don't know how possible this is, but it's conceivable that we could do something like the budget Maneater team by just using Emic. But again, the biggest issue, he doesn't have block debuffs, which is a big thing. And his shield ability, because he has unkillable on himself, everybody still has to have a certain amount of HP in order for the clan boss to target them. But you still, if you want to have the target be very specific, you have to kind of, make sure they still have the lowest HP, and you have to worry about affinity stuff. It gets really, really complicated and very difficult, much like the budget unkillable can be, right? So while I'm sure there's some ways we can do that, I haven't figured them out yet, but we're going to be looking at a lot of the other basic stuff, the things that most of you are going to be able to do, and we're going to start that with this video right here. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss the next one. So like I said, this team here, the basis behind it is we're going to have Emic and we're going to have Maneater, and Emic's A2 ability is going to reduce the cooldown to allow Maneater's A3, the one that does block debuffs and unkillable, to also happen on a 4-turn cooldown. And by the way we have them set up, they're going to be able to cover everything. And Maneater's actually going to be able to prevent any debuffs from landing on us. So you can actually make this work for both Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. Speeds are incredibly tight to have it be perfect for both, and there's some timing stuff that you absolutely have to figure it out on, but it's very easy also to substitute some champions in if you want to do it, because what's going to determine if this works for Nightmare versus Ultra Nightmare is not Emic and Maneater. Those speeds stay the same. It's the actual other champions that's going to have that variety to them that's going to make that difference. So just so you know, this is very possible to do that. And if you guys want to see how this all works and have it all written out, it's on the website. So you just go to my website, DeadwoodJedi.com. You can search for this team on there. I still need to get Emic onto the website, but as soon as I have them in there and everything, it should be very easy to find. You can look on the search bar or just look under the list of tunes. You can definitely search under Maneater. That's one way to find it. But this is how you're going to want to do this. So who do I have in here? I have Emic. Now, I have it set up for Ultra Nightmare, right? Nightmare is going to take a little bit different timing, and if there's a desire for it, I'll make a whole video on it so you guys can see how that actually works. But you can see we're going to prioritize his main skills. A3 has an unkillable ability, and then the A2 that does the cooldown. Maneater, who's the other big one, you can see we're going to open with the A1 and then goes A3. And it's a full auto team. There's no manual necessary for this. You can see Maneater is going 243. He basically needs to be about 240, like between 240, 244 is what we're aiming for. And Emic is 245 to 248. So those are the ranges for those two champions. They're obviously, you know, depending on speed sets and stuff, you got to be careful. Definitely checking the calculator to make sure you're not going outside of those ranges accidentally. That's always important to kind of keep in mind here. As far as the rest of the champions, the big thing is they all need to be, I'm pretty sure this is right, 183, and then the two of the DPS need to be 183, and then the last DPS needs to be, I think, between 183 and 183 and 188. If you go faster than that, it messes it up. You go slower than that, it messes it up. Either for Nightmare or Ultra Nightmare, right? That's kind of the break point, and for some reason it works with both right there. But like I said, all that's on the website if you want to see the details. But yeah, we're going to be bringing in Ragnar because Ragnar is phenomenal for these types of team. He gives you the leech, so we're taking damage because we're unkillable, so we can heal up and hopefully get some free counterattacks with masteries. We're going to be also getting decreased defense and the weaken, and he hits really hard. So he's a really good champion for this. I'm bringing in Fanex just for the heck of it. I'm just having him use his A1 because he gets double hits. It's not the best damage dealer for Clan Boss, but it's kind of fun. So I figured why not bring him in. And then we're going to bring in Chani, who's a very good damage dealer for Clan Boss. Also brings HP burn, poison sensitivity. I'd probably bring in a poisoner instead of Fenax, but I just kind of wanted to bring him in, see what we can do. But you can see Chani's 182 with her sets. It's almost 183, and Fenax is 183. So this should work for both Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare the way I have this team built right here. But let's jump in and start the run, see where we can get to. Okay, so here we go, jumping in the run. Like I said, it is full auto. You're going to see that unkillable ability going from Emic, and he's going to be putting that on right before the first AoE, right? And it's going to cover everybody. And then the second AoE, Maneater is going to place it right there. Gives us block debuffs, so we don't have to worry about affinity. We don't have to worry about the stun. The only issue is on this very first turn, we got to be a little bit careful. I think everybody's covered. Yeah, everybody's covered, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I take it back. It doesn't matter. We're going to be covered right from the jump. Don't have to change anything. I believe on Nightmare, you have to be a little bit careful that Emic doesn't take the stun. So right now I have him in the lead, but ideally I would put somebody else in the lead for that spot. But the idea here is Emic takes a double turn right before the first AoE. On that second attack, he's going to place the unkillable, covering everybody for that attack. And then on the second AoE, right before that one, Maneater's going to take a double turn, and he's going to place the unkillable right before the second attack, or on his second attack, and that's going to cover everybody, and with the block debuff as well, so it'll cover everybody for both the second AoE and the stun as well. It works really well. I mean, we know how Maneater does these things. What's great about Emic is he's reducing that cooldown, making Maneater much more viable, so we can utilize him like we would a Tower or a Sir Nicholas, letting us stay unkillable throughout. And then, of course, Maneater brings block debuffs, which makes it that much better, right? On top of that, Maneater can hit pretty hard too, so that's always a nice little touch. But you can see right here, get that block debuff or the unkillable up. Don't have to worry about dying. We take damage, but we don't have to worry about dying. And then we just go to town and let them work. And everybody kind of goes in order. Now, there are a couple, those defensive masteries. You don't need to take the one where someone's getting stunned. Maneater, no one's getting stunned. You do want the one where if you lose, I think 25% of your HP, you have a chance, 50% chance of counterattack. It's free counterattacks. And because we have unkillable on ourselves, and because we have leech, not only will we have enough HP to lose that 25% all the time, but we're going to be losing that 25% all the time as well. So there's a lot of ways for us to actually get some free counterattacks in a team like this, which is really nice. And then, of course, you want to make sure you take you do more damage when you have less than 50% health, because we're going to need to hit to activate the leech and heal back up. pretty much that's going to be a bonus for us all the time, and we're almost never going to have full HP either. But you can see how this works. It's very simple, works very well. I have somebody in a toxic set here, so we're getting a little bit extra damage, but I would probably put a Poisoner in Fenax's spot instead, and I think that would just give us a better result. Somebody like a Draco would be obviously ideal, even turning off his A3, because we'll get the decreased defense and the weaken from Ragnar, and when he takes hits, he's going to be resetting his skills. So he's basically going to do it like every other turn or every 3 turns. The other thing with Ragnar, you got to turn off his A2 because the extra turn will mess things up. So you definitely want to do that if you're going to use him. But that's the team. It's pretty awesome. What's also really cool is we can bring in champions that have 4-turn cooldowns, because due to Emic, it's going to be reduced by a turn, right? So if there are any champions that we wanted to bring in, we can do that and have them work with Emic in this team, which I think is pretty remarkable, quite frankly. So if you wanted to bring in somebody like a Skull Crusher, you can actually have Skull Crusher take the stun, not worry about cooling it down, because that 4-turn cooldown would then be reduced to 3. That's the 3-turn cooldown ability, added 1 because of the stun, you know what I'm saying? But that's the team. That's the team. It works, I think, really well. Let's look at the champs and the stats so you can see that, and then we'll finish this run out here. All right, looking at the champs, let's start with our DPS. We can begin it off with Chani here. You can see I do have a couple sets on her. Pretty basic defense and offensive masteries, plenty of accuracy, crit rate. I try to build up the crit damage and the attack as much as I can. So it's a pretty good build, I would say. And she does decent damage, but obviously nothing super crazy. It's the HP burn, but she also has a debuff extension ability, gives herself an increased attack, increased accuracy buff. There's a lot of things that are going on in her kit that are really nice. And I probably could have built more around those things than I did, but it doesn't really matter. She does a really good job. And then we can talk about Fenax. Again, offensive, defensive masteries going on here. I put him in a retaliation set. I figured let's get some extra attacks in wherever we can. Did a pretty decent job, I would say. Definitely overkill on the crit rate, but that's all right. Good, solid crit damage. Definitely a little bit on the lower side. I'm not quite sure. I think it's just my gear isn't that great in this set. And decent attack. Definitely could bump the numbers up to be more effective, but all the same, does a pretty good job. And then, of course, one of my favorites is Ragnar Gold Gleam. Hits really, really hard, gives himself that increased attack buff, gets leech, decreased defense, weaken. So accuracy is definitely important here. I also have him going faster than the other two at 187 speed. This is going to ensure that he goes at the top of the turn order. That's just going to help make sure that we have the proper debuffs on the boss before the other champions take their attack, so hopefully help juice our damage a bit more. Good crit rate, good crit damage. He's a killer. I do him in the support masteries. It's just what I had him in already to help extend the duration of those debuffs. That's fine. And then we got Maneater. Love Maneater, of course. I do him in a toxic set to help give us a little bit of poisons. Like I said, I would probably sub out Fenax for an actual poison champion, but this seems to work pretty decently for us. I have him at 243 speed. 240 is kind of what I was aiming for, but we went a little bit over and it still works. So I went ahead and left that. Other than that, I'm just trying to build his attack, crit rate, crit damage up, just so we can do as much as possible to show you guys what this guy could do potentially. And then very last, we have Emic Trunkheart. Really good champion, obviously. I do have him in Immortal in speed sets. You don't need those. I don't know. Why not? I figured. But he's got, 245 speed. That is really the minimum that we want to hit with him. So definitely want to stay above that. Between 245, 248 is kind of my sweet spot here with this team. But I built him with crit rate. I did build him with crit damage, plenty of HP. You can see exactly how hard he hits. It's not spectacular. It's not terrible, but definitely not what I would call a damage dealer for Clan Boss. 53, almost 54 million. Not too shabby, I'd say. Fenax actually did really good, 13 million damage, considering he's just using his A1. It shows he does hit really hard. Ragnar with 10 million, Chani with another 13, Maneater almost had not too bad damage all around. And I did build them all for damage, so we could get a good look at what that is. Emic, only 7 million damage, not terrible, I have to say, especially considering one of his skills is a non-damage ability, but definitely he's, I would say, on the weaker side of things. So he's not going to be a significant damage dealer, but he does put up some numbers, so he's not a complete loss either. A 7 million in 50 turns, that's not a bad result, especially considering he's basically getting one attack per turn. It's not even a crazy amount, so that's not a bad result overall. So, like I said, this is just another option that we have when we're using Emic. If you have a Maneater, this is going to be a really, really good option for you guys to make an easy clan boss team. I mean, yes, we have two champions going about 240 in Emic and Maneater, but that's not a horrible ask, I don't think, especially for something that is so easy to do. I'm bringing in Ragnar, Fenax, and Chani. These are not like OP champions. I love them. I think they're really good, but by no means are they the best options available. So I could easily see someone building a team like this and being able to do 1 key damage, especially, I mean, just honestly, just bringing a real poisoner instead of a toxic set on Maneater. I think you'd have a pretty darn good result out of this, probably pushing 60, 65 million. Add in maybe a legendary champion that hits a little bit harder than these two or these three champions, and you could easily be getting to 1 key damage with this team. So there's a lot to like about this. It's very simple to run. Like I said, it is full auto. It's just a little tricky getting the speeds for both Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. So if you do want to build this team, just make sure to check it out on the website first and make sure to check it in the calculator. Got to put in all your chance, got to put in all the fun stuff. It's really the only way it's going to work for you guys. But if you do that, I think you're going to see some really good results. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this and got yourselves thinking about different ways you can build some clan boss teams. This is just the first of many. I'm going to try and go through as many as I possibly can of teams we have already established and try to look at some ways we can use Emic and that cooldown in some interesting ways to build some new stuff as well. But obviously, there's a lot of possibilities here. So we're going to have a few videos coming out for you guys. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It does mean a lot. Hitting that like button. And make sure to comment down below. If there's a team that you think Emic would be good for and you want to see how that works, let me know. If something hits my eye and I'm like, oh, that is a good idea, I'll go ahead and try and build it for you guys. So anyway, I just want to say all that. Thank you guys for watching. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.